Welcome, STEMgineers, to STEM to Stern, the podcast where curiosity meets critical thinking. Join Chauntée and Jake as they discuss STEM topics that spark debate and exploration.
Hi, everyone. It's Chauntée.
And I'm Jake.
And today's topic is, what does it mean to be smart?
Yeah, this is something I was pondering the other day, and we've had a lot of discussions about things like emotional intelligence and being book smart, having knowledge doesn't necessarily make you a really super smart person.
I love this topic.
Yeah, because in my opinion, because we're here, we're STEM education company, and we're talking about the STEM subjects, and and the topic of intelligence and being smart always comes up. I think it's a bit more complicated than what a lot of people make it out to be.
I can see that.
Yeah, so in my opinion, I feel like being smart and having good general judgment are two different things. You could be knowledgeable of a certain topic, you could be knowledgeable of a lot of different STEM topics, but if you don't have good judgment and if you don't have the ability to break things down and try to see things from another point of view, then you're limiting. You might have a lot of intelligence, but you're limiting your scope of intelligence.
I agree. But I also think, as someone who has worked with a lot of gifted and talented kids who are the top 10%, which I don't claim to be anywhere close to that, and I don't think either one of us would ever say that. But the reason that we talk about these type of topics is because they're fun to us. We're not claiming to know everything about them. It's just these are fun to talk about because we're curious.
I'm actually claiming to know everything, but Chauntée isn't.
Yeah, which that's another discussion that we'll have when we start to talk about mental health and things, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah, how big is my ego? Is it
yes,
this big?
Exactly.
That big?
Narcissism. That's the next topic. No, but I do think as I've worked with a lot of students who are, placing in the top 10% of these tests that are being taken, I do constantly address with them, it's great to be intelligent and to be the top 10%, but it also is important that you're constantly looking for ways to grow and learn from others, because it doesn't mean that you've
Beautifully
arrived.
put.
You can't claim that you've arrived at, I know things, well, I can't learn from anyone else, because that is where you're in danger zone.
Yeah, and that sounds a lot like that emotional intelligence
Correct.
thing.
Yeah, and also just normal basic knowledge is also lost sometimes. Just I've had people in my class ask me if anyone could be a roofer for a job, and I'm like, that's a job. But they didn't know that because they're closed off into their world of wherever they're studying or whatever they're studying, and they don't realize that there's the world around them functioning in a different way. So it can be really dangerous. But you can be smart in the day-to-day life and more intellectual in how you're handling just normal life. Or you can be really smart in these topics.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can be really smart in emotional intelligence, which to me is something that is really difficult for a lot of people who are smart, because you have a hard time reading other people. It's harder to be empathetic sometimes when you're in this world where you're just constantly learning and growing and you know so much.
Exactly. I remember when I first joined STEM Education Works, I kept reading that phrase emotional intelligence, and it wasn't a phrase that I had come across before. But the more I learn about the challenges that teachers go through, and when it comes to in implementing STEM in the classroom and trying to make sure that your teaching style reaches as many of the kids in the classroom as possible, and coming from different angles, being able to read people and being able to give information to somebody in a format that they can digest properly, that in itself is a whole form of intelligence.
Absolutely. I agree. I think it's really important that we address that constantly within ourselves, even just checking yourself to say, okay, hold on. Am I also hearing and seeing other people outside of what I'm doing, and realizing that people have something to offer, even if they're not skilled in that department? It's also understanding why they don't understand it, so that you can make sure that what you're doing is growing on how to explain it. Because all this knowledge means nothing if we can't help other people get it.
I think that's a beautiful segue into what I was just about to say, in the fact that what comes to my mind when we talk about this is the whole conundrum of the group project in school. Like you have
We
like
all
the,
know what he's talking about.
like and like like I was always like the guy who like like, oh, like this person does all the work and like the other people do this. I was always like an overachiever in high school. But here's the
What?
thing. Here's the thing. When it comes to being like the person in the group project that does all the work, sometimes intelligence is knowing how to break up the work and knowing who has what talents and realizing that, teamwork makes the dream work. It really does.
And that's not just a cliche, even if it is a cliche.
It does. We all here at STEM Education Works know the importance of teamwork. And,
Very much.
being able to tap into that and like, for instance, like people, like I could never be the boss of a company. I would be bad at that. But like people with those management skills, that's a form of intelligence, and being able to see people's strengths and to put them in situations where they not only can show off those strengths, but get even better at those things. That's another form of intelligence.
It's true. It's true. I love this topic. And I do feel like there's so much out there when it comes to intelligence, what that looks like. And I think everybody has smarts. It just looks different.
Exactly.
And I think it's important, again, to know your place, and to know when is the time to talk and not to talk, which I learn constantly, have to check myself. It's a problem.
Yeah, being a good communicator means you're not only good at talking, but listening.
Correct. And I think we all need to constantly look at ourselves to make sure that we are still being a learner, even if we think we've learned.
And let us know in the comments what you think it means to be smart, and also what talents you have that make your intelligence shine.
Love it.
Thanks for tuning in to STEM to Stern. We hope today's episode got you thinking. If you enjoyed the discussion, subscribe and share it with others. And be sure to check out our show notes for free resources and links that go along with today's episode. Until next time, keep questioning and keep exploring, STEM engineers.